This. Welcome, everyone. This is session number 4 in a 6-part series on Money Matters, sponsored program created by the UL system, folks for the 9 universities. And today's session is on investing for international students, faculty, and staff. This is a 6-part series we've been doing this summer, and for the most part, the sessions have been open in general to faculty, students, and staff. The first 3 sessions were maybe principally designed for faculty and staff, although students hopefully learned something and participated. Today is really about students. Today's message, today's program is really about providing information, resources, context, tips, for international students. And hopefully there's some international faculty and staff who are joining who can either contribute or learn. But certainly, we understand that being an international student has many tensions, sources of anxiety, sources of stress. And we want to help you get to a place where managing your money is less of a source of stress. Maybe we can't get rid of all of the stress or concerns, but hopefully we can help you take a little more control of your financial situation. And a lot of what we're going to do today, I guess maybe the second half, is making sure you're aware of what opportunities exist for you. And so that's the plan. Please, if you have any questions, any information, suggestions, please feel free to contribute those in the chat or just by speaking out. I am Brian Bolton. I'm a finance professor at UL Lafayette, and please feel free to contact me after the session anytime with personal finance questions, international finance, international student questions, brian.bolton@louisiana.edu. We also have a website where this PowerPoint and many other resources are, business.louisiana.edu/finances personal. And that tagline, finance is personal, is something I say over and over, because personal finance really is personal. Finance in general is personal, and especially with international students. Finance gets even more personal because when we talk about finance being personal, we mean that everyone's in a different situation and everyone has different goals. And then when we bring in the international context, the situations become magnified or even more diverse, and the goals become even more diverse. And so what we'll try to do today is provide general context, tips, resources, suggestions, but we fully realize that your situation may require or need some more personal attention. So feel free to contact me, and we can help figure things out for you specifically. And if I can't help, then we'll try to get you the right resources. As I mentioned, this is part 4 or session 4 of a 6-part series. We've talked about investing goals and habits generally. We've talked about income and debt management and budgeting. Last week, we talked about specific investing programs for retirement, education, and other special events. We'll touch on those again today from an international context, international student or participant context. And that'll be our focus for today. Again, as I mentioned, we're starting. Hopefully the audience includes faculty, students, and staff professionals. I prepared kind of for an audience of students, simply because that's maybe where there's the most uncertainty and maybe the most anxiety for a variety of different reasons. And so that's the primary, that's the audience I'm prepared for, but hopefully the messages, tools, information can apply to anyone. And certainly if there are faculty and staff that want to ask questions or contribute, please do so. Next week we'll do, I think, one of my favorites, and not because I'm a tax guy, but because tax planning is ubiquitous and it's a part of kind of everything we do. And if we have intelligent investment or tax plans, we can save ourselves a lot of money and certainly some stress. We'll talk about tax planning today too from an international perspective, which kind of illustrates that tax planning is involved in everything we do with money. And then our sixth session in 2 weeks will be on career planning and kind of tying this all together. If you're a graduate student or faculty or professional, your engagement with UL is largely kind of as a for your career, either to transition to a different career or to, because the UL system is your career. And so it takes up a lot of our time, but also takes up, or is an important part of our financial planning. And so we'll tie this whole series together in 2 weeks with our career planning module. So the way I like to do these, and I'm not sure I've really stuck to this program perfectly, because kind of the webinar style. But if there's any open questions and answers at the beginning, any issues that you want to specifically address, we can touch on those. Then I'll go through the specific guidance and ideas, and then we'll have some time at the end for more Q&A. But again, if you have questions that pop up during the session, please don't be shy. This is the model we're really trying to focus on, not necessarily with international students specifically, but for everyone. What are we as individuals trying to achieve? We're trying to achieve some type of happiness, whether that's independence, opportunity, or career plans, or education. We achieve that happiness through both short-term and long-term goals. We achieve it through our family, through financial resources or needs, through our education, through social activities, kind of everything we do. And we're trying to find that right balance. And there are trade-offs. There's tensions, there's stresses, but trying to get that right balance is what we're all trying to do as individuals. And so this is a model, simple model that I show frequently just to remind us of what we're trying to achieve. Throughout this series, I've used these 5 quotes to kind of inspire, to put some context to the whole series and what we're trying to achieve through financial wellness. A goal without a plan is just a dream. And that theme will come up today about making plans and having plans. I think if we can take these quotes and these ideas applied to our financial lives in the same ways we do with our family, our careers, or our education, I think we'll probably have better perspective and make more relevant financial decisions. I think the quote that summarizes today is, "You cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by avoiding it today." And from an international student perspective, getting the long-term and the short-term balance right is really important. And it's important simply because there's so much uncertainty. International students who are not permanent residents, have probably more uncertainty than students who are permanent residents, and have a better idea of what the future holds. The best advice we can give you is to plan and prepare, and start that planning and preparing today, so that when tomorrow arrives, you're prepared for whatever it brings. The general financial model always starts with, what are your values, dreams, and goals? If you go to a financial planner, investment advisor, they're going to ask you, what are your goals? And for each of us, those goals are going to be different. They start with education, career, family, money, maybe. Whatever our goals may be, that defines where we want to go. But in order to get where we're going, we have to understand where we are. And from an international student perspective, this may be more complex than for many other professionals or students. So education, career, family, financial situations, we understand what that is, then we can understand how to achieve our goals. Once we have the starting and the end points identified, then we can create the financial plan. And that's a lot of what we're trying to provide through this series, is investing, budgeting, debt management, taxes as the foundation of a financial plan. And then most of us will have insurance, retirement, education needs, resources, goals that we can build into that plan. And then kind of the final level is family, business, philanthropy, estate planning over the longer term. That's what we're all trying to do. We put it together, it looks something like this. And I use this model generically kind of with every audience, but I want to take a little more time with the international student audience to really focus on the top half. And the top half is kind of, what are your goals? What is your current situation? And maybe where there's the most uncertainty, or where you have unique uncertainty for a variety of reasons, whether it's the goals. Your goals may be dependent on situation, may be dependent on more factors than other people. And they may be influenced by situations or decisions that feel largely out of your control. whether that's visa status, whether it's employment status, whether it's exchange rates, whether it's insurance. Many of these things may seem out of your control, and that puts you in a unique position. We talk about this and we present this just to remind you that your situation is unique. And so we want to encourage you to reach out and find help. And don't assume that your situation is like the student next to you or the person next to you in the office. Make sure you understand how your situation is unique and what the unique tensions may be that either prevent you from achieving your goals or can facilitate achieving those goals. So I'll give several slides with different morals throughout this, and the morals are all kind of the same. But first, have a plan, right? Have a plan for how you're going to get to where you are today to where you want to go, whatever that is, whether that's graduation or going back home or whatever the goal is. Have a plan, but then also have a few backup plans. Have a plan B, C, D. What if the exchange rate changes a lot? What if there's another pandemic? What if your advisor retires? Many of these tensions will cause bigger impact on your situation than with others, simply because there's just more complexity as an international student. So have a plan, have a few backup plans, and control what you can control. And you'll see that in a few minutes, and we'll start by talking about budgeting. And it's a session on investing, but in order to be able to invest, we have to control our expenses and control our income. And by getting a grasp on budgeting, that's one thing we can control, even though there's many other factors we cannot. And so by controlling what you can control and then adjusting, you'll have more options for your financial situation. For students, complete your degree. We say this over and over, and you probably get sick of it, but the best financial investment you can make is completing your degree. And once you complete the degree, then that opens up doors to other options. Those other options may include another degree, but completing the degree as efficiently and as effectively as possible should be your financial planning priority number one. And because what's the alternative? If you don't finish your degree, what's the financial cost of that? The financial cost of not finishing your degree could be enormous. You've made an enormous commitment to be here, to be working towards these goals. Now make sure you finish. And completing your degree needs to be your top priority, both from a personal perspective, but also a financial perspective. And then the advice we give over and over: find mentors, faculty, other students, staff, who've been through what you're going through. And I've been an international resident in other countries, but not in the US. And so I can give investing guidance. I don't really know what it's like to be an international student in the US. I know what it's like to be a US citizen in another country, but I might not be the person who can give you the best advice. Look around your department, look around your college. You will see many international faculty, international staff who've been through what you may be going through. And they might not be your mentors academically for your education, but they can provide great guidance and great information for kind of what you're going through socially and personally. And so reach out. I know I'm from the UL Lafayette. Most faculty would love to help you here. And I suppose that's the same at just about any other university. They've been through what you're going through, many have, and they would love to help you. So the structure, as I said earlier, we're going to start a session on investing by talking about savings, and we'll talk about why in just a second. But the general model of trying to achieve that financial wellness, achieve some opportunity and wealth, it starts with savings, goes from savings to investing. You can't invest unless you have money saved in some sense. And then once we invest, we can build wealth. And when I say wealth, I don't necessarily mean financial wealth. I mean freedom, independence, options, opportunities. Maybe it's financial wealth, but maybe it's just the freedom to own your time and to do what fulfills you and your family. When we switch this to an international perspective, I think it's important to kind of separate the savings and the investing as two different activities or focuses. The savings, we start with the savings because this is what you can control. You can manage your budget, actively saving. You can control it more than you can control many other factors. If uncertainty is the enemy, you can have some control over your income and you more control over your expenses within a short term to give you just more control and less anxiety over your cash flow or your financial wellness. In order to invest, we have to have some savings. And I think the key point from today that some of you may be wondering about, may already know, from an investing perspective, yes, you can do it. You may or may not want to, but you can. And in general, most international students, international faculty and staff have every investment option within the US that I have or that any other permanent resident has. You may not want to, but because given the uncertainty or the tensions in your short term, but you certainly do have the options. And so what we'll do today, next 15, 20 minutes, we'll talk about savings, then we'll talk about 15, 20 minutes on investing. And when we combine these or we separate these, then hopefully that leads to wealth, opportunity, freedom, independence, wellness in general, what we're all trying to work to. Again, some more morals. Budgeting is critical. And when we talk about budgeting, always pay attention to exchange rates. I hear this over and over from international students, just that uncertainty about exchange rates. And I'll follow up on this in a minute. Repeat myself several times, I think, by design. Always pay attention to exchange rates. And especially if you're getting a significant amount of your money from home, as the dollar gets stronger, that may be bad news for you. And so just pay attention to what exchange rates are and factor that into your budgeting as well. While you're in the US government is going to require you to pay income taxes, or at least report and file. And so if permanent residency is a goal, you have to constantly comply with residency and reporting requirements, including paying or filing for income taxes and reporting your residency. And so don't think that as an international student, you can get away with this. The US is probably one of the more, I don't know if aggressive is the right terms, but the least lenient as far as tax requirements, whether you're in the US or abroad. US government's going to tax you on income. And so, and certainly as an international student, you want to comply with all the requirements, just if for no other reason, so you stay in the good graces of the US government. So starting with budgeting, if you haven't done this, you probably know it, but make a budget and identify your fixed expenses, your rent, tuition, books, utilities, food, insurance, car, phone. In the past couple of sessions, we've talked about separating discretionary expenses and unexpected or non-discretionary expenses, or unexpected and non-discretionary. And so, create a budget for this, create lots of cushion. Try to build an emergency fund if you can, maybe with one semester's expenses saved up. Being explicit about that budget and including some exchange rate flexibility or uncertainty will give you some peace of mind. Learn to live within your means. Lifestyle creep or lifestyle trying to achieve a certain lifestyle. It's very tempting. Maybe save that until after you graduate. And trying to keep up with a US lifestyle, which I think I can say this is one of the more materialistic and maybe superficial lifestyles. Try to avoid that until you have more certainty about your situation. And so, if you go into debt, as we talked about in the last couple of sessions, debt, doesn't go away. Debt will stay with you and follow you wherever you go. And if you increase your debt to achieve a certain lifestyle, just remember that lifestyle is going to get more and more expensive because the debt's going to stay with you. And a common concern that we see with a lot of international students is the limited opportunities to increase income. And so this is in part one reason we want to talk about investing, but it's also another reason to control your expenses. You've limited opportunities to increase income on campus or otherwise, many do. And so controlling your expenses becomes even more important, but then also looking potentially for ways to invest any discretionary saving that you have becomes even more important. The tip that Rose Honegger, Associate Director of Global Engagement, always gives when we're talking about budgeting, for most international students, either obtaining permanent residency or extending the stay in the US is frequently a goal. Make sure you have $410 set aside for your optional practical training. Optional practical training, as you know, is an extension of your visa. I don't know if extension is the right word, but it's a one or Rose nod. In STEM, is it 2 years now, or is it 3 years with STEM? The OPT. Most disciplines is 1 year. Go ahead.
Yeah, OPT is 1 year, and then if you're in a STEM major, then you have an additional 2 years.
Okay, so great. Thank you, Rose. So 1 year additional for everyone, and up to 3 if you're in a STEM field. But you only get that extension if you have the 410 to obtain the application fees. 410 is the current rate. It may be higher in the future. I've given the resources for Global Engagement Office, International Affairs Office here at UL Lafayette. I think this is a message that I would give to everyone. Your university knows an enormous amount about what you need and what you're going through, and has incredible resources. Don't be shy. Reach out to people like Rose Honegger, reach out to the Global Engagement, International Affairs people on your campus, because they have the resources. You may not know where to find them, but be persistent and reach out. And even if you're not at UL Lafayette, you're welcome to use our resources to get information. You may not be able to use them for much more than that, but most universities have great resources about OPT or about for international students. But from a budgeting perspective, OPT, even if you plan to go back home eventually, OPT just can extend your stay here as a graduate for 1 to 3 years, but make sure you have that money. From a tax perspective, as I said earlier, the US tax system is one of the more aggressive. Still don't like that word, but it's not necessarily wrong. And that requires everyone, non-resident students included, to file a tax return. I say income during 2020, whether it's 2020, 2021, and certainly now 2022. If you receive income, you have to file a tax return. That doesn't mean you owe taxes. Your income may be small enough where you don't owe any income taxes. And if your employer or university has been withholding taxes, you might get a refund after you file your taxes. Refund is just getting some tax money back that you already paid, but you have to file. And what I said earlier, make sure you comply with all legal requirements and rules. Filing your income taxes is step one. Make sure you always file your income taxes just to report to the US government. Yes, I'm here, I'm earning some income, or I'm not earning income, and I'm filing as I'm supposed to. But if you didn't work or you didn't receive income in the US, you are still obliged to file Form 8843, which is essentially reporting to the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, the government, that you are a non-resident, you're here receiving some education benefits or benefits. And this is, again, part of that compliance with the system process. So either a tax return or the 8843, depending on your situation. You may also owe income taxes back in home country, depending on your income situation. I know for US citizens, when we earn income in other countries, we still owe US income taxes on that foreign income. Potentially, we get large deductions, but we potentially owe income on money we receive in other countries. And so you may owe income taxes in your home country in addition to income taxes in the US. So make sure that you're following through and aware of what that may be. But from a US perspective, you definitely have to file, and then that will determine whether or not you owe taxes. Here at UL Lafayette, we have an arrangement with a tax preparation company called Sprint Tax. Your campus may have a similar relationship. Used by a lot of international students. We like Sprintex, particularly because it has this international student scholar focus. And you guide you through the process, make sure all your reporting is complete and appropriate. And past a few years, eligible students have received a pretty nice income, primarily pretty nice tax return.
Yeah. Name
See if we can mute people. We need to mute. There we go. Thanks. And so these a lot of people getting these refunds are people who maybe had more taxes withheld and then ultimately didn't owe either taxes at all or as high a tax as possible. And so when you come spring of the following year, getting that $1,126 check back can be pretty nice. So look to your university Office of Global Engagement, International Affairs, whatever it may be, and see if they have a similar arrangement. Here's the process for filing in the US. I'll post these slides, won't go through this, but it's discount code for filing with Sprintex at UL Lafayette, user-friendly for international students. Again, check to see if your institution has similar, or you can reach out to us and we can help you. So as we're going through budgeting, as we're getting ready to start investing, a few reminders: common financial challenges for international students, challenges for all of us in a certain extent, but probably greater for international students than others. Health insurance while in school. You are required to have health insurance while in school. Your university or employer may or may not provide it, depending on the institution. If it's not provided, shop around and plan ahead. If it is provided, still shop around to see if the program you're getting is a good one, and to make sure you understand what it is. And that's the second point here. When you are either obtaining health insurance or making a claim and you have bills and expenses, the US hospital bills and insurance practices are probably unlike any other country. Probably unlike, certainly unlike European countries, certainly unlike mid-Asian countries, in both the reporting, the billing, the entire process. It is not uncommon for those of us in the US to get what looks like a hospital bill that is trying to charge us thousands and thousands of dollars for something that we didn't think we had to pay for, and then to later find out that it's covered by insurance. Before you pay a bill, ask lots of questions. Never pay before you're absolutely sure what you owe. Our health insurance system in the US is different. You're probably aware it's highly politicized, but just make sure you understand it and make sure you understand what you're paying, because it's probably very different from what you may be used to. As I said earlier, rent, food, insurance, living expenses are going to be different. You should be making long and short-term budgets. Make sure you're using US costs. US costs are going to be very different, much higher than many countries, maybe lower than maybe a few European countries, but make sure you're using US costs and expenses. Ask other students, ask other international students, ask the International Affairs Office. And again, wait until you graduate to try to achieve that US standard of living quality of life. Exchange rates, a common issue, and I suspect most of you are aware, the dollar right now is stronger relative to many currencies than it's been in a few years. When the dollar appreciates, that may be bad for you if you're getting money from your home. And so my advice, I think, is when possible, when you're able, to get as much of your money, your source of income in US dollars as possible, to act as a hedge. And your budget, you should be accounting for some fluctuation in exchange rates, an appreciation of the dollar, probably depreciation of home currency. But a simple financial hedge that you can use is just make sure that you have the cash in an emergency fund or savings account here in the US to cover 1 or 2 semesters of expenses if possible. I would not recommend getting into any more complex financial securities such as derivatives or options. Those are probably more dangerous than most of our students need. They're probably more dangerous than most professional investors need. But just having that savings account or the money in US dollars can act as a simple hedge. When thinking about maybe the longer term, if permanent residency is a goal, regardless if permanent residency is a goal, establishing a financial presence in the US can only help you. Getting a bank account with checking and savings accounts, getting a credit card. If you want to borrow from a US institution, you may have to have someone co-sign. Having the Social Security or taxpayer ID may be enough, but you may need to have someone co-sign it as well. Having a financial presence can open doors to other opportunities in the future. We want you to be responsible with your credit card or your borrowing or your financial presence, but we do want you to have it because it can also help you get a credit rating, which eventually longer term can help you borrow more. But it can just also help you kind of smooth the transition into potentially investing or managing your expenses and income better. And again, set aside that 410 or whatever the amount may be in the future for your OPT as you get closer to graduating and having an idea of what your career is going to be after school. And for careers, OPT is step one for everyone. Get that automatic 1 year or 3 years for STEM. But then also be thinking about your future decisions. And perhaps international students should be thinking about future decisions earlier than non-international students, simply because you may have to plan further ahead about where you're going to live, or that job tension of should you take a good job with uncertain visa options or a mediocre job with the promise of a visa. I have talked to many students in Lafayette, at UL Lafayette, who would much prefer the mediocre job with a higher probability of a visa. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? You have your own goals, you have your own situations, your goals. Make sure you're very honest with yourself about what your goals are, so that when it comes time to either look for a job or consider what's next after school, that you're making the right decisions. Again, there's nothing right or wrong with any of this. It's all about what's best for you. And in some cases, making the choice to go back home may be what's best for you, your family, your career. And so you'll plan ahead. I've said that over and over. Just make sure you plan ahead to give yourself as many options as possible. Simply because if you don't plan ahead, you lose many options, and that's going to be driven by uncertainty. We can't control it, but we can create different plans that give us different scenarios. What if there's another pandemic? What if your advisor retires? What if the dollar strengthens, starting a family, so forth? The future will not be exactly as we plan, but the more you control the present, you control what you can control, the less surprised you'll be when the future arrives, the less you'll have to adjust when the future arrives. And so point number 2, what if your advisor retires? What can you do today to caution against that? Well, form multiple relationships in the department. Don't rely on just one advisor. You can talk to the advisor, you can ask them what their retirement plans are. They may not be able to tell you, but if you can establish multiple relationships, you're covered if an advisor retires or moves to a different university or something. And so be proactive, take control of your situation, and that will eliminate some of the uncertainty and anxiety when the future happens. Again, ask for help, plan ahead, finish your degree, and always communicate with family, both in the US and at home. Indirectly or directly, they are going through what you're going through. And so let them help, share your issues with them, ask for help, whether it's financial or otherwise. This is a family experience, even if you're the only one in the US or going through the experience, your family, you in the US or at home are going through it with you as well. So share it with them. As we transition kind of from this short-term focus to a longer-term focus, I want to remind ourselves of what we're working for and trying to get these family needs and financial needs taken care of. When we build a financial plan, we start with goals, we analyze reality, so that's where you are. We create the plan, we execute the plan or implement the plan, whether that's investments or budgeting or whatever, we see how it's going and we adjust. With international students, we may have to do more tracking of the progress and adjusting the plan than you expect, simply because there's more variables. But you've been doing this with education, right? You've been doing this kind of planning with your education. You can do it with your financial planning. And the financial, with education, there's a lot of things that are out of your control, just as with financial planning. And you're very good at the education planning. It's because you plan ahead, because you ask questions, you master what you can, you control what you can, and we want you to get to the same place with your financial planning. So, investing. I've got 4 or 5 frequently asked questions that come up, and they're all kind of the same, and they all kind of have the same answer. And then we'll kind of get a little bit to the how-to. But are international students, faculty, staff legally allowed to invest in the US? And the answer is a resounding yes. There may be some country-specific laws that prohibit, meaning depending on where you're from, the US government may have some restrictions, but there are very few of those. And for most people, most international students, you have every legal right to invest in different tools, resources, instruments as a permanent residents do. It includes opening a brokerage account with Robinhood Fidelity, buying and selling financial securities, banking, credit cards, just about everything. What do you need? You need a Visa, taxpayer ID, and/or Social Security number to open any account. I've had students open these accounts in class. You can open a Robinhood account very easily, very quickly. Many of you have Robinhood accounts. Many of you have savings brokerage accounts. So yes, you can. And once you have the account, then the investing can happen. Remind you about taxes. You will owe US taxes on any profits you make, either short-term, ordinary, or long-term capital gains. You invest $1,000, you sell for $1,500, you owe taxes on the difference, the gain, the 500. You don't owe taxes on the full 1,500, but just make sure that you are aware of your gains. Your brokerage account will track those. They'll send you a 1099 form in January or February of the following year, but just make sure that you're reporting and paying any taxes that you have on your investing activity. You do want to be careful that your investing activity does not look like a full-time job. You do not want the IRS to look at the activity that you have from your brokerage statements, from your 1099 tax forms, and have it look like you are day trading full-time, or you're a professional, or certainly that they don't want you to be managing anyone else's money. And so we want it to be passive, hobby-like, secondary activities, disconnected strategies, disconnected activities. There's a number of rules of thumb. Officially, the IRS rule, the official rule of thumb, if such a thing exists, but according to the IRS, anything less than 500 hours per year is generally considered a hobby, whether that's investing or whether that's me painting and selling my paintings. If I spend less than 500 hours per year on it, which is, 12 weeks full time, then it's generally considered a hobby and it's okay. I've heard some people say, some investment professionals say that if you're making more than 3 or 4 trades a week, then it looks suspicious. If you're making 3 or 4 trades every week, maybe that's a concern. If you make 3 or 4 trades 1 week a month, it's probably not a concern. But you want to be very careful that your investing or trading activity is passive, secondary, just for passive income, not to replace a job or as a vocation. Last week, we talked about individual retirement accounts, Roth IRAs. Can international students or employees open them? Again, the answer is yes. And the probably simply gets to, you have to have earned income and again, a Social Security or taxpayer ID. The earned income means a salary. So if all your income in the US is from investments, then you're probably not eligible to open an individual retirement account or a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA, not Roth RIA. Sorry about that. So yes, you can. You can contribute $6,000 per year into an IRA or a Roth IRA. And there are significant tax benefits with doing this, but you have every right to do so as any permanent residence. The key is going to be that earned income. Do you have basically salary or paycheck income? And it could be a work study, it could be a GA position. Lots of different ways to get that earned income, but you have to have it. It can't be passive investing. Similar question, but now from a company-sponsored perspective, are international students, faculty, staff eligible for a company-sponsored retirement account such as a pension, 401k, or 403b, the 401k equivalent at universities? Again, the answer is yes. And not only are you eligible, in many cases, you will automatically be put into the plan. The university's HR department will give you the same enrollment options as any other student, faculty, staff. You may not want to be enrolled. So be careful, check to see if you are automatically enrolled. Many universities, you may have heard of the company TIAA-CREF. TIAA-CREF is a large national retirement plan provider, and many students, and this was the case for me in my graduate student days, a portion of each paycheck I got, and my paychecks were generally just for overload teaching, a portion of my paycheck went into a TIAA-CREF retirement account. And I didn't really know it until I get my statement every semester. And then 3 or 4 years after I graduated, I was able to kind of reclaim that money or find that money. So you may not want it to be automatically taken. You may not have a choice. I didn't have a choice. But you have every right. You have every option. And certainly if long-term permanent residency is the goal, then taking advantage of these retirement investment options in the US may be very attractive, as we talked about in session 3. What happens to your investment retirement account assets if you end up leaving at some point in the future? And the answer is essentially nothing, meaning they stay in the account. They stay in the US account. You do not, as I understand, you do not automatically have to claim them when you leave the country. It will stay in your US account. There may be some country-specific exceptions, but for the most part, the money will stay in your US account, will stay in the assets you chose, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, whatever you invested in, until you decide otherwise. When you decide otherwise, if you do it before you turn 59 and a half years old with any retirement account, so investment accounts are different, a brokerage account through Robinhood or Fidelity is different, but if it's a company-sponsored retirement account or an IRA, you cannot withdraw the cash until you're 59 and a half without paying taxes and a 10% penalty. So if you move back to your home country when you're 35, you've got 24, 25 years to wait without getting hit with that 10% penalty. You may want to cash out earlier, but just be aware there will be a penalty and you will have to pay taxes. When you sell or withdraw, you'll be paid out in US dollars, regardless of where you're living. May need to convert those into a different currency, but essentially, you are treated, your investment retirement accounts are not any different for you as international students, faculty, staff, as they would be for permanent investment, which may or may not be good, right? But at least it's clear. It's clear kind of what the US position is. And then finally, maybe this is why some of you are here, and we'll spend 5 or 10 minutes on this, the how-to. I understand I'm legally allowed, I've got lots of options, but I don't know anything about investing. How do I do it? And this conversation, I can't do it justice in 5 or 10 minutes. We would need 5 or 10 weeks, but this is my invitation. If this teases you and it interests you, please feel free to follow up, and we can go through kind of more personalized investment planning for you, for your goals. But from a general perspective, how do you do it? If you have a company-sponsored retirement account kind of through the university, your company is going to assign an investment advisor, and that advisor can help you get started. Typically, with a company-sponsored retirement account, you're going to be limited in what you can invest in. It's going to be a small number of mutual funds, typically. It's not bad. It's just you'll have less control, and the investment advisor can walk you through the process, walk you through the options. If you decide to work with your own financial advisor to help you get started, they can put together an investment strategy. They can give you a lot of peace of mind. They can work with you specifically. This is going to be the most expensive option. Again, I'm throwing this option out there. My email address is brian.bolton@louisiana.edu. I am not a registered independent financial advisor, but I can pretend to be one for your purposes for a little while and help you get started. And then hopefully I can educate you enough and get you enough peace of mind to either help you go forward on your own or to engage with a brokerage or a financial advisor on your own. Working with independent financial advisors is going to be the most expensive. The cheapest is going to be go it alone. Manage your accounts, manage your money, manage your investments account. It's going to be the least expensive and, to me, the most rewarding, the most fun. And I say rewarding may or may not be the most financially rewarding, but you can manage it so it's not financially ruinous or financially risky. So I don't give investment advice, but some things to think about. Do you want to pick individual stocks? Do you want to pick individual mutual funds? Do you want to pick individual index funds? When I think Tesla's reporting earnings news today about how they've done in the past 3 months, do you want to follow that? Do you want to follow individual companies? Do you care kind of about that level of engagement? If you do, that can be really exciting. It can help you feel more control, more connection, more personal interest in your investments. There is some potential for big gains, but also potential for big losses. If you invest in individual stocks, there's going to be the most risk, maybe the most taxes, maybe the most fees and transaction costs. You get that personal connection, you feel more engaged, you wake up in the morning, you can follow 5, 10, 15 individual stocks or securities. Problem is, with thousands, literally thousands to choose from, how do you come up with that list of 5, 10, 15? And your job is to be a student, right? You're not a professional investor, you're professional students right now, professional faculty and staff. It can cause all sorts of anxiety. And if you have other sources of anxiety, you may not want kind of this level of stress from your financial planning, financial investing. So maybe you want to be a little more conservative and content investing in mutual funds or market indexes that pool dozens or hundreds of stocks. Typically, it's not hundreds, typically it's dozens. That if you invest in a mutual fund, they'll have at most 100 individual securities. But it's professional investors with established financial institutions who have long track records of picking stocks for a variety of reasons, either potential or history or risk return balance. Potential for moderate gains, so you're not going to get the huge gains you might get with individual stocks, but you're not going to have the huge risk. There's going to be lower risk through probably a more appropriately diversified portfolio, lower costs, and while there may be thousands of options here too, you can narrow the selection down pretty quickly by thinking about, are you short-term, long-term? Do you care about capital gain? Do you care about big gains? Do you care about value? Do you care about income? You can talk to me about that. You can talk to an advisor about that and get some sense of what the different options are. By baseball analogy here, lots of singles and doubles, but no home runs. So lower risk, consistent returns, consistent performance. Not just, there's no promise of gains, but potential for moderate gains. There's never any promise of gains with investing, but and mutual funds can manage some of those gains or probably those risks better than you might be able to do on your own. Here's a list of some market indexes to maybe think about to get you started. The S&P 500 index, ticker symbol SPY. It's 500 of the largest US firms from all industries, is maybe one of the broadest and most popular indexes. SPYD, same firms, but with a focus on companies that pay dividends or income. You'll get more income, possibly lower long-term gains. Income may or may not be good because income means taxes, but income is consistent, and maybe that level of consistency is nice. IWM is the Russell 2000, so 2,000 smaller US firms, more volatility, possibly higher returns. This is, if you have a short-term investment strategy, I would not recommend a whole lot of this, of the IWM. I would recommend if you go longer term, just because there's going to be more volatility. EFA, if you're in the US, but you want to be investing in markets non-US markets. The EFA is maybe the broadest, most diversified non-US firm market. EFA stands for Europe, Far East, and Australasia. And so it's big firms, established firms in those three enormous regions. Few investments from each region, but some of the more established firms. And so you're getting international diversification, you're getting different exposure. If you want to be a little more aggressive, EEM is an emerging market index. Non-US emerging market stocks in Brazil, historically Russia, maybe not, maybe it's not investing in Russia right now. India, China, some of the more established, bigger emerging markets would be in the EEM. And it's going to have more risk, but bigger firms from developing and emerging markets. If you want to be a little more aggressive, maybe GBTC, it's a Bitcoin index. So there's thousands of cryptocurrencies out there, literally thousands of cryptocurrency options out there. I cannot support with a good conscience investing in too many of them other than Bitcoin, simply because Bitcoin is the most established as a potential currency. It's not even a currency yet, really, real broad currency. If you want to roll the dice, go to Dogecoin, go to Ethereum, go to some of the other cryptocurrencies, but understand you may lose 100% of your investment. Bitcoin, you still may lose 100% of your investment, but it's established enough where, to me, the risk of that happening seems smaller. And by investing in the Bitcoin index, GBTC, you don't have to mine, you don't have to own directly, you don't have to pay $20,000 or $25,000 for a unit. You can buy it at a much smaller price, but there is significant risk. Bitcoin has gone from $100 to $60,000 down to $20,000 in the past few years. Huge swings, but it may be interesting or intriguing to you. I'll finish with these next three slides, and then if you want more personal attention on kind of how to get started with investing or how to do it, please contact me. When you're just getting started with whatever amount you have, $20, $2,000, just go for it. Pick a few investments, pick a few individual stocks. You can get into most large stocks for as little as $5. It's called fractional shares or stock slices. You can get in for relatively small amounts. Even if the stock price is $150, the brokerage can slice it up into much smaller pieces, so you can buy in at $5 or $10 usually. Not for every stock, for the biggest, most popular stocks. Just go for it. Pick a few investments, track them regularly. Be prepared to buy or sell should you feel uncomfortable with what you're doing. And this may seem risky to some people. It maybe seems uneducated, but I've had many students do this, and the risk really is not as big as you might think. It may be hard to pick big winners, but it's always hard to pick big winners. Hard for anyone to pick big winners. And the benefit of this is you will be more engaged, you will be tracking it regularly, and you'll kind of get a sense of what works for you and what doesn't. Another option might be to first determine how much you have to invest. Put half of that into an index fund or a specific mutual fund. That gives you kind of the security and kind of that conservative approach where you know it's going to be well taken care of. And then put the other half in individual stocks or securities that intrigue you or interest you. If you're more likely to follow them as investments, you're more likely to learn about the companies, maybe pick 5 companies where you spend the most money, whether that's clothes or online or shoes or food. Pick 5 companies that intrigue you, you'll follow them, and it'll help you figure out what kind of investor you are. And then as you maybe have more income, after you graduate, you'll figure out you'll have more money to invest and to use, and you'll gravitate towards either of the first 2 approaches that interest you more. There's no set way to invest for everyone. You have to figure out what works for you the best. And maybe when you talk to maybe the best approach for you, if you're scared about the first 2, is to talk to a financial advisor. They're generally not going to tell you what to invest in, but they'll walk you through your situation, your options, and then make some recommendations. They'll ask you 2 questions. What are your goals? What's your risk tolerance? And then they'll work with you to best align those answers to these questions. I'm going to stop here. The rest of the slide deck is posted. It goes through kind of some of the more detail about how to determine your risk tolerance, comparing some different classes or types of investments, looking at what the different historical returns have been, thinking about the benefits of investing. This slide just shows the benefits of compound investing at different rates over time. We can't promise the rates at the top, the returns or the interest rates at the top. We can't promise those, but by intelligently choosing different investment options, over the long term, certainly in the past, we've been able to realize investment returns of 5 to 10% on different stocks, different securities, and hopefully that'll continue into the future. And if you're comfortable investing, you want to invest, those possibilities might be available for you. Finish with one last quote. Don't wait around for other people to be happy for you. Any happiness you get, you've got to make for yourself. This is a quote by Alice Walker. I've said this over and over. I think it really applies. It certainly applies to personal finance. It applies to entrepreneurs, and it probably applies to international students as well. You are here getting an education because you've made that leap. You've committed to making some happiness for yourself. And by taking control of your financial situation, maybe you can get some more comfort and control of that pursuit of happiness through your financial wellness as well. That's it for international investing for international. Next year, we'll do tax planning with some tax planning for investing, but also some retirement budgeting and other tax planning issues. I'm Brian Bolton. Please contact me. We covered a lot today, but we didn't cover nearly as much as we could have. And if you have questions about your specific situation where you want to really get into the details of investing and investment options, please contact me, and we'll really design a plan that's just for you. Away from the sharing, if there are any questions and comments, again, as Katie is saying, thank you everyone for joining us. Please don't, if you want to share some feedback for future sessions or for just this session, please do so. And look forward to seeing you in future sessions or hearing from you personally. Any comments or questions, follow up from anyone?
Okay, so I have a question. So in your presentation, you said how aggressive. I mean, I'm careful with that word. The U.S. government is regarding tax filing.
Yeah.
So let's say you invested in, say, a Bitcoin and you run at a loss. Do you still have to file for it? And when you file for it, what do you do? Do you pay back? Because you actually lost some money there.
Yep. Great question. Thank you, Henry. Always file. On gains or losses, always file. And the benefit, so if you have a loss, you do not owe any taxes, right? And if you file, the benefit of filing is that you are telling the IRS that you had this loss, and you may be able to apply that loss to future gains. If you lost, let's say, $1,000 for investing in Bitcoin this year, and you gain $3,000 investing in Bitcoin next year, you can kind of combine those for next year's taxes, so you don't owe taxes on the $3,000, you owe taxes on the $3,000 gain less the $1,000 loss. So your net taxes will be based on the $2,000. But yeah, you always want to file aggressive. Yeah, I don't love that word. Maybe proactive is a better term. But you can be proactive too and just inform the IRS of what you're doing. The IRS is not out to get you. The IRS is not trying to steal your money or out to get you or punish you or penalize you. The IRS is basically trying to make sure we're all following the rules appropriately. And some of those rules work to help us. Many of the rules work to help us. And next week, we'll talk about specific rules for students in education that are pretty generous. And so, yeah, maybe proactive is a better word. I need to think of a better word. Proactive, aggressive isn't perfect, but, and so if you file with the IRS and you say, hey, I lost some money this year, the IRS says, okay, keep records on that. You'll be able to get credit for that in the future.
Okay, Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Great question. So a couple questions. Number one, you were talking about 20 or 2000. So Lionel, yeah, so on question one, I said whether you have $20 to invest or $2,000 to invest, it doesn't matter. Just get started. And if you only have $20 to invest, you can open a Robinhood account. You can even take that $20 and invest in 2, 3, 4, 5 different securities, and probably at most 4, I guess, for $20, maybe more. But I'm very biased. I'm a finance professor. I believe in this stuff. I'm used to this stuff. I'm comfortable with this stuff. There are risks with investing, but you can learn a lot too. And if you only have $20 in a savings account, maybe it's best to leave it in the savings account. But once you are comfortable enough with, you have some money to invest, then put it into a brokerage account. I keep saying Robinhood. I don't care. I don't own stock in Robinhood. Fidelity, Schwab, E-Trade, Ameritrade, whatever. Open an account and just get started. Whether it's $20 or $2,000. So hopefully that makes sense, Lionel. Anthony, please, is there a specific brokerage account you would recommend for mutual funds that is good for students? There's not really. And that's not because there aren't any, it's because there are so many. I'm a big, whether it's Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Robinhood, E-Trade, Bank of America, I would encourage you to, if you're opening a brokerage account with the broker, just shop around, look at 2 or 3 to make sure you're comfortable with what you're signing up for. And what you're signing up for is service, right? They exist to help you. For the most part, any fees or transaction costs are going to be very small. Robinhood, they're essentially 0. But they're essentially 0 at Charles Schwab and Fidelity and most other large established brokers as well. I think for international students, I would advise going with a relatively large established broker. One, because there's going to be the least risk, maybe from a compliance and reporting perspective, but also for the possibility of, if you choose, say, Bank of America, or let's say Citigroup, you choose to work with Citigroup, you may be able to Citigroup may have operations in your home country that you can transfer your accounts to relatively easily. I don't want to encourage say the larger financial institutions are best for you, but they may be, right? And is there a specific investment I would choose, whether a specific type of a mutual fund or account? There really isn't, because everyone's going to be a different situation. And ironically, there are more mutual funds available than individual stocks. There's something like 6,000 individual stocks in the US, individual companies you can invest in. There's tens of thousands of mutual funds. And the mutual funds are just investing in forming portfolios of pools of the stocks. And so the mutual funds are created to market to us, to create a product that we are interested in. I don't have the time or energy to form a portfolio with 50 different stocks. I may not even have the money to do that. But I can hire a mutual fund company to buy lots of stocks, 50 different stocks, pool them together, and then share some of the risk and the returns with the entire customer base. And there's so many of those options out there that I don't have a specific recommendation. I'll be honest, I'm a big fan of the S&P 500 index, ticker symbol SPY, just as a place, almost as a savings account. There's risk, and it's investing in stocks, and it's maybe not exciting, but as a pseudo savings account with the risk of an investment, it's a good place to start, but it may not be interesting or exciting enough to you. And if you pick a brokerage firm, they're going to have plenty of mutual fund or different account options for you, and that you can choose. What most of them will have is a questionnaire. How old are you? What is your income? What's your risk tolerance? What's your time horizon? 1 year, 5 year, 10 year? Do you want income, or do you want long-term gains? and they'll ask you 5 or 10 questions, and then they can filter and direct you to a relatively small number of investment options, mutual funds that are that will be appropriate for you. Again, I'm biased. I do this all the time, or I study this all the time. If you go with large or relatively established mutual funds, ex ante, before the fact, in expectation, there are not going to be huge differences between many similar different funds. They will always remind you that past performance is no guarantee of future returns. Or past returns is no guarantee of future performance. So if a fund has returned 15% for the last 10 years, it may return 15% next year, but also no guarantee. And so just be careful, do a little bit of research. I would encourage you not to obsess over it. And I would not stress over it. I would not think that there's anything that, I would not try to find the perfect investment, because the perfect investment doesn't exist. And so the more effort, the more stress you put into trying to find the perfect investment, the more you're going to be disappointed. So just get started. Just pick 2, 3, 5 different funds or investments or something, track them, follow them, and then adjust. But the hardest part for many people is just getting started and going from there. Again, anyone, we can ask more questions. Yeah, thank you, Anthony. Great question. Feel free to follow up with me, and we can get more specific.
Thank you, Professor, for such presentation. I wanted to know, last time I was doing my little research on investment, and I was told that if you put $500 in a compound interest account for the next 30 years, you're going to get close to $1 million. And I was asking myself, like, if you have any idea about such a thing, if you could just expand that for us. Thank you.
So what was that number again? How much do you have to invest?
$500 every month.
That's right. Yep. $6,079 a year. If you invest $500 a month, it should grow to $1 million in 30 years. That's right. And that's the compound interest. So over those 30 years, you will put $180,000 in, but the compound interest, and compound interest is simply interest on interest. The interest on interest should grow or to make up for the other 800,000. Again, think of this. You'll put in 200,000 over these 30 years. You'll get 800,000 of interest on interest, and that will get you up to the 1 million. The big assumption with that is that you're getting a 10% return. Now, is that a big assumption? We've done that for the past 100 years. 100 years, the past 100 years, stocks like the S&P 500 have returned 10% per year. So you might assume that we can get it for the next 30 years. There's no guarantee, but it may be a reasonable assumption. So I'll put this example in the chat just for everyone. $500 per month for 30 years at 10% return or interest equals $1 million. On my website, the Louisiana website, which I'll type into the chat, that business.louisiana.edu, finance is personal. I've got some calculators on there. And so it's an Excel spreadsheet that does this math for you, that you can change it to, okay, what if I'm not doing 500? And what if it's not 10%? What if it's 200 at 8%? And you can do the math and you can play around and get different assumptions. One of the morals from the previous sessions is, and this is kind of why I say, when I responded to, whose question was it? Lionel's question. Just get started. If you're in your 20s and you're able to start investing, or even if you're in your 30s or in your 40s, whatever, doesn't matter. Just start now. Start investing now and let that money grow. interest on interest or the compound interest can be your big, big friend. The longer you wait, the more you're missing out on the interest. And let your money work for you. Let that interest help you. Thanks for the question.
Thank you so much, sir.
No promises, but based on history, that's the math that works. Anything else? Anyone else? I love doing these sessions because I learn from you. I learn both in preparation. I learn afterwards. I'm certain there are some of you that showed up and I did not answer your questions or address what you were maybe curious about. I apologize for that, but don't be shy. Follow up. My email is brian.bolton@Louisiana. Feel free to contact me, ask general questions, ask specific questions. We can talk about specific investments. We can talk about your situation. Or feel free to join us for the next 2 sessions. Next week, we'll be talking about taxes and taxes, both investing in taxes applying to investing in general, but also to education. When trying to figure out what the right word is to describe the IRS, whether it's aggressive or proactive. It's also, it's not out to get us. It's out to keep us in line, I guess, and to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. But that also means make sure we're getting the benefits we are entitled to. And for students, there are a number of tax benefits that are available to you. And we'll talk about some of those next week. So next week, taxes, tax planning, and then the following week, career planning. Hopefully you can join us. If not, reach out to me directly. Anything else?
Is it gonna be the same time next week?
Yep, next Wednesday. I know we sent a direct invite out to international students, international affairs at different campuses. The UL system has a Moodle site with all the links and with everything. If you do not have access to that and you want to join next week, reach out to me and I can get the link to you. Let me actually check to see if it's the same link. But yeah, so you can reach out to me. I can make sure I get you the link. We've tried to reach as broad an audience with these sessions as possible, but we may not have been able to reach as many people as we wanted. Let's see. Apologize for this. I'm scrolling through the Moodle site. Yep. So this link next week, the same link you joined this, the same Zoom link this week will work next week for tax planning and the following week for career planning. Yeah. Thank you for joining. Hopefully you can join the future ones. This project, if any of you are from the UL Lafayette, this project we've done kind of in partnership with the grad school, and we do these similar Money Matters programs. We're going to continue those through this fall. If you are not at UL Lafayette, feel free to reach out to me because we'd love to do one of these programs on your campus. We'd love to do one of these graduate student specific programs or international student specific programs on all 9 of the campuses. We've got one campus, UL Lafayette, that we're doing it. We'd love to expand it to others. So feel free to reach out to us and maybe we can work on establishing those at different campuses too. If there's nothing else, I'm gonna shut it down. Thank you all for joining. Rose Honegger, thank you for joining, my source of knowledge, but also my international security blanket. Thank you, Rose. Thanks to everyone else. And hopefully we'll see you next week or sometime in the future. Have a great afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your summer. Bye, Rose.